This week's Torah portion is Parshat Shelach. We read from the story of the spies. The Jews have been in the desert for many years, and they've experienced miracle after miracle. Now it's time for them to be able to go into the land of Israel. However, there's a petition. The petition is as follows, that they want to be able to send some spies and to be able to go and scout out the land of Israel before going in. Why would one do this? To be able to see where the vulnerabilities of the defense are. They were going to go on the counterattack and to be able to go into the land of Israel. And they wanted to be able to see the best strategy possible to be able to go and defeat any opposition that they would encounter. But obviously the question is, they've encountered so many miracles up till now. What's happening with their lack of faith in God? God has provided for them. There's been no challenges, or very little. And God has promised them that they're going to go into the land. What was the need to be able to send the spies up? The spies that eventually did go up were the heads of each tribe. There were 12 spies that went up. 10 of them went up with a very negative attitude. They didn't want to be able to go into the land of Israel. And they came back with a terrible attitude as well. However, there were 2 that went in with the positive and came out with the positive. The question on the 10 that went in with a negative and came out with a negative, the question is, these were not just regular people. These were the leaders of each tribe. What was the motivating factor that drove them to be able to come back and report in a very negative way? The Zohar tells us that one of the challenges that they had was that they knew they were worried about losing their status as the leader of each tribe. Why was that the case? There is a book written by Rabbi Goldvich called Isufa Mareches, where he brings down the following. He says that the heads of the tribe, the only environment they knew how to lead was an environment of midbar, an environment of desert. What does that mean? If we have a look at the Jewish people, how they functioned in the desert, they had very little distraction. They had all the food they needed, they had all the water they needed, and the way of them being able to connect with God was in a very bubbled environment. And they weren't worried about outside concerns. And yes, of course, they were able to connect with God in the most purest of forms. However, why were they worried about losing their status now? Because once they went into the land and they settled down into a place which was a regular place, which was going to be prone to possible challenges of distraction, and they weren't able to connect entirely based on miracles to God, they were worried that their style of leadership, they were worried that the leadership that they had practiced and they had known wouldn't be adequate enough to be able to lead the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Hence, they were worried about losing it, and they went up with a negative attitude and they came back with a negative attitude. That in itself was a sin, because they weren't prepared to foresee, and they weren't prepared to, or they were vulnerable in seeing their positions being taken away from them. However, they should have been able to trust in God and know that whatever decision was being made, Hashem had full confidence that, and the Jewish people should have had full confidence that the decision that was being made was going to work out. However, these people were worried about losing their status and losing their position, which was a very selfish act, when in essence they should have known that Hashem had a full plan in place. When it comes to ourselves, being able to look at the greater good, to be able to see what the ramifications of decisions are, and being able to look at situations that we have on a wide spectrum, not just of how it relates to ourselves, but how it affects the people around us. That was the great sin that these 10 heads of the tribes did, hence it being one of the greatest sins of all time, which even today we commemorate and we remember. On Tisha B'Av, we believe that this took place on the 9th of Av, which is a terrible day, a mournful day, and definitely a time for reflection in how they acted and in how we act today. Have a wonderful Shabbos.